Are you listening? Damn.
I never thought I'd get to a conference and not fanboy, but one of my favorite marketers, because you must have a favorite marketer in the world, is Qhawekazi Mdikane. Thank you so much for coming through.
Thanks for having me.
Listen, so not only are you the head of brand of Momentum, but you're also one of the people who I've been chatting about with my sister for the longest time.
Okay.
Because in researching for this conversation, a lot of things came up about the work that you do in Momentum, but also the work you do outside of it.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And I was told to say to you, life is tricky, baby. Stay in your magic.
Yep.
Okay?
Yeah.
For those who don't know where that comes from, please enlighten us. Why is that your mantra?
Because kuningi.
Everyone.
Kuningi. When you're going through challenges, you often forget that you are not alone. Everyone else goes through challenges. So for me, that mantra helps me to remember that even when I'm going through tough times, through difficult situations and challenges, just to stay in my magic, because God never gives you something that you're not going to handle.
And I think you've been very good at sharing that magic in the spaces that you've worked in. Some of the brands that you've worked on have been so enlightening. You were the first to work on the Flying Fish brand.
Yeah, I was part of the team that actually launched Flying Fish back
which
in
has
my
now
days.
become a South African braai staple,
Yeah,
right? You also
yeah.
have worked with, Castle Light Unlocks, which in itself became an institution.
Yeah, I launched that one, season 1 and season 2.
Yeah, I mean, this is crazy because I look at how those brands have evolved and those institutions have evolved, and for me, it's very interesting that you also then moved over to financial services.
I know,
and so maybe let's talk about how that move worked out.
Sure. After 17 years in financial services, in fast-moving consumer goods, I actually started my career in 2003 at Mercedes-Benz as a graduate trainee. And then my first real job in corporate was at L'Oreal in 2006. So FMCG, then moved to South African breweries, where I stayed for literally like 7 years.
And we find that lots of marketers who go to SAB Unilever end up becoming poached and headhunted to go become CMOs at other big brands. I don't know what the magic is.
It's the school of marketing. It really is the school of marketing. And for me, the reason for me to even move from L'Oreal to South African breweries, my brother is also a marketer, and he had quite a few friends who worked at SAB at the time. And they always just had so much fun.
Yeah.
So for me, I was just like, work equals to fun.
Kumnandila.
I would love to be part of that environment and be part of that culture. So when the opportunity availed itself, I applied and I joined SAB as an assistant brand manager for Miller. Then worked my way, was promoted, joined Castle Light, was part of the team that repositioned Castle Light, then part of the team that launched Flying Fish. And then after working on 3 brands, I left, but still continued within financial FMCG. And the move to financial services came in 2021. I think for me, once I realized that, marketing is really about telling stories, telling powerful stories, and making sure that, you are remembered as a brand when people are ready to purchase. So I realized that marketing is marketing. It doesn't matter what industry you are in. And I tried my luck and I applied at, now it's Momentum. And I joined Momentum in 2021. And it's really been one of the best decisions I've made in my life.
You talk about telling stories, and you were instrumental in one of the biggest stories in the South African storyline, right, in the last 10 years, of a wonderful proposal that happened in a particular fast food restaurant, and how you were able to champion that and, create this big conversation. I mean, there's viral, and then there's what happened with that campaign.
Sure.
Okay, there was
career highlight, good one.
Because when I think about what it did, I promise you, 200 tweets a second were coming in. And for you to have seen that moment, understood that moment, and then be able to live in that moment, for me, there's a certain amount of magic that needs to come with that.
Yeah.
Chat to me about how you're seeing the landscape in the marketing world, especially with this fight between what I call traditional marketing and the new age marketing, social media, influencer marketing, and content creation.
Yes.
We do this podcast where we talk about the business of influence because we've seen how big content creation and influencer marketing is. But you have been client services, FMCG, and many others.
Yeah.
How are you seeing that relationship between what I call traditional and the new media, especially with the the proposals and all the new media things that have happened in your career?
I think as a marketer, if you're not going to keep up with the trends that are happening, especially because of the advancement in technology, people have got access now, to cell phones, and all the communication happens through just your cell phone. I think for me, if you are not then going to embrace all the trends that are happening, that are centered around digital marketing, or non-traditional marketing, social media, content, the advancement in technology such as AI, your brand is going to die because you need to be able to reach people where they are. And where are they? They're on social media. It's also important that as a brand, you realize that people don't actually want to receive information from or brand messages all the time. They don't want to be bombarded by brand messages. So it's important as marketers that we partner with people of influence.
Yes.
People that have got the credibility, sometimes have got a broader reach than you have as a brand, who are going to be your mouthpiece, who are going to be able to tell your brand story in a way that is more authentic, and then people are more receptive to that message, and then your brand message will be out there. So I think for me as a marketer, it's very important that you look at the various tools, channels, and elements that you have as part of the marketing mix, and make sure that you combine traditional marketing or traditional media with now digital and social media.
I find it interesting, especially in financial services, because it's a heavily regulated industry. And we were chatting with one of your financial services counterparts, and we're chatting around how do you then have an influencer or content creators have an authentic communication with something like financial services, which is, if we're being fair, it's not as trendy as KFC. It's not as trendy as Castle Rocks, right? Castle Light Rocks, right? And Locks, right? So what do we do? I mean, it must be really challenging and at the same time quite, rewarding for you to then have a conversation around a metropolitan, and then you're now having to momentum rather, and you are having to have a conversation around go and tell people about us when we're not selling, candy floss and all the popular items.
Yeah. So for the past 6 years, we have anchored our brand story on success and the important role that advice plays on your journey to success. We are an advice-led brand and we're an advice-led business. So for us, it's always been important that in how we narrate and position who we are as Momentum, we really champion the power of advice. So we've really been able to create properties and brand assets such as Science of Success, She Owns the Success, where we have been telling our brand story in a way that is relevant to the target audience and elevating the role that advice plays on your journey to success. Yes, because we're in financial services, one of the things that we know that we need to do as a business that is really purpose-led is to make sure that ordinary South Africans have access to finances and the financial services industry, and also have financial education so that they're financially literate, so that they understand the product offerings from our business, and they also understand the value proposition, who are we and what we stand for, so that when they make informed decisions about some of the products and solutions that we offer to them. Yeah, it's very important, I think, for me, especially nowadays in South Africa, given the current state of the economy. I mean, people are struggling.
Everyone is struggling.
Everyone is struggling. It's important that we empower people with the knowledge. So financial literacy is something that is important to us, and we do that through championing advice by making sure that we stay relevant to the topics that people want to hear from. How do I become more successful as an entrepreneur, as a woman who's working in corporate South Africa? All of those things are really centered around some of our campaigns.
What is very evident to me is that apart from Momentum having conversations that are relevant, not everything that is influenced or influencer-led has to be something that is loud and crazy, because everyone, as you say, owns their own success, but also is an influencer in
It's
their own
unique.
right.
Success is
You
unique
know.
to each and every single individual.
And for me, that's key, that when we think about influencer marketing, we always think about, selling me something or unboxing or whatever. But it's so interesting to see, because when I hear the strategy and I'm hearing where, the genesis is of this conversation, this advice, you then start seeing where the people who are listening, so influencing might not just be on TikTok, it might not just be, on Instagram in a nice picture, but it's the conversations that you
It's the
curate.
conversations, that we curate, that are really centered around the very information that people want to hear. And people go to social media, it's their first port of call for them to seek some sort of advice. How do I change a tire? People go to TikTok, and there are people there are many content creators that are curating content centered around what ordinary people want to hear. And that's, so that's what we do.
Is financial services ready for that kind of conversation? Are we ready to realize that the influencer and content creation sector of the marketing is not just a nice to have, but it might be as primary as a billboard, a radio ad, a print ad?
If they're not ready, we are. If they're not ready, we are. We even have a whole department within our marketing community that is centered around content creation.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, we've just, there's an executive actually who looks after that department. She actually calls it the conversationalists.
Conversationalists.
Yeah, so
okay.
my colleague Natalie Katz, executive head of digital PR and all things content.
I'm loving.
So it's key. It's part of your marketing mix.
I'm loving that we don't often see innovation in financial services in that scale. And I think this, for me, is very exciting. You can see me fizzing in my seat because for the first time we're hearing this very traditional sector of business talking to people the way they want to be spoken to, as you said earlier on. As a parting
Meet
shot.
people where they are,
exactly where they are, especially South Africans who are at so many places. As a parting shot, with your extensive experience in this industry, when you look into your crystal ball and you look further ahead where we're going,
I'd love to.
and I ask the question because you know where you've come from, you've got the history, you've got the experience, and what is that you would like to see happen as far as marketing is concerned?
Sure. I'll start with an event such as this one where you and I have met for the first time.
Yes.
I think it's very important as a leader, as a manager, to really expose your people to such events. It's very important that we step out of the office and out of the boardroom as the marketers that we are, connect with like-minded marketers and people. I've met former colleagues and friends from throughout my career, just outside networking. It's very important that we take our people to such events so that they stay inspired. So that they listen to all these keynote speakers come and talk about the latest trends and innovation and how to really improve our marketing. That's the first thing, and I would like to encourage more managers and leaders to really reward their marketers. Reward their marketers by bringing them to such events. Then something that I'd like to see happening is what we've been talking about. I think for me, because of the advancement in technology, we also need to empower our people. So training, so that we keep up to date with the trends that are happening in our industry is key. And sometimes because budget cuts and all of that, we don't actually give our people the opportunity to get trained on the latest trends, to attend these conferences. So I think training is key for me. So you can see everything's about the people, the people, the people.
It's about the people.
Yeah, so for me, in order to really have breakthrough, meaningful, impactful, memorable work as a marketer, it's all about the people that you employ to be part of your team.
And
so
they're your best
start
asset.
with your people. Make sure that you look after your people, you empower your people, because people that are taken care of do more than what is expected.
Happy employees make happy
Happy
people.
employees
Happy people
make
make happy
happy people.
employees.
Exactly.
And I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Qhawekazi Mdikane, she
Yeah.
is the head of brand over at Momentum Metropolitan. Thank you for coming through.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks.